Okay, so welcome everyone. My name is Dan McCrae. I am the Director of the Academic Support at the Center for Distance Learning. And today we're going to be talking about some stress management skills. Specifically, we're going to talk about flow, relaxation, and the high performance mind. So one of the things about stress that is important is it's not just important to have skills to deal with stress, it's also important to kind of make sure we have the right frame of mind when we're thinking about stress. Kelly McGonigal, she is a psychologist and a researcher. She did a great TED Talk on this a little while ago, and talking about some of the new research that they've done into stress. And what they found is that how we perceive stress is just as important as how we deal with stress. So if you think that stress is a bad thing, and the more stress you have, the worse off you're going to be, the sicker you're going to be, the less psychologically healthy you're going to be, then those things come true, and you do end up being sicker. And actually, people who believe those things, that believe that stress is really bad for you, actually have a 43% greater chance of dying from stress-related illnesses. But the interesting thing is that if you think stress is actually healthy and helps you perform better, and helps you optimize your health psychologically, physically, then that also comes true for you, and you actually do perform better. And actually, there's been a lot of research done over the last few years into both brain chemistry, brain scans, brain imaging, and high performance. And what they've found is that actually stress is part of the cycle of flow. And so what I'm going to do at first is talk a little bit about the high performance mind, and then we're going to talk about what flow is and how you can kind of recognize flow. And then towards the end of the presentation, we're going to actually do some 1-minute meditations that will help you start to learn to deal with stress and struggle and difficulties, and hopefully get into that flow state where your performance and your health are improved. All right, so let's see. So a lot of the work that we're going to talk about today comes from a woman named Anna Wise, and she wrote a book called The High Performance Mind. And she was is a researcher who did a lot of work with a guy named Max Cade. And what they did was work with people's with brain waves, and they found that there are different brain waves that are associated with different states of mind. And they found that meditators, people who were able to get into kind of a highly relaxed state of mind, had a specific kind of brain scan pattern. And they found that people who meditated longer and were better at it actually became more skilled in developing what she called the high performance mind, where you have conscious concentration, you were awake, you were conscious, you were aware, you could think logically, but you were also relaxed and able to access subconscious and even unconscious information, and it helped you get into the state of flow that we're going to talk about in a second, which helped people perform better. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. So what is flow? So this is from Stephen Kotler. So according to Stephen Kotler, flow is an optimal state of consciousness where we feel our best and perform our best. It's also a strange state of consciousness. In flow, concentration becomes so laser focused that everything else falls away. Action and awareness merge. Our sense of self and our sense of self-consciousness completely disappear. Time dilates, meaning it slows down like the freeze frame of a car crash, or it speeds up, and hours can pass by in 5 minutes. And throughout all this, all aspects of performance are incredibly heightened, and this includes creative performance. So flow is a state of consciousness, and we've heard about it and talked about it in different ways. We might have heard the word flow. If you listen to athletes, they talk about being in the zone. Musicians talk about being in the pocket. You've heard people talk about runner's high, and there's also a new discovery, kind of probably one of the newest forms of flow that they've found, is called helper's high, and that's where people experience flow just from helping others. And that actually, they found helper's high actually has the longest kind of after effect. So whenever you're in flow, it doesn't usually last a long time. It's usually a pretty short state of consciousness, but it kind of bleeds over into other areas of your life. And so if you have flow for like 1 hour on Monday, the after effects of flow actually last for a couple days. And in the helper's high, it actually lasts for weeks. So there are positive effects of going into flow, both psychologically and physically. People who meditate regularly, athletes, especially action adventure athletes like rock climbers and surfers and snowboarders, people who play games, whether they're traditional games like chess or video games, when you're writing, when you're doing artwork, when you're working, all these types of experiences generate flow. So flow was discovered by a guy named, actually wasn't discovered, he actually built on the work of Abraham Maslow. Abraham Maslow did work with people who were really, peak performers, people who were at the top of their game, and he found that they experienced flow, but he called it peak performance, a peak experience. And that's where you have that intense focus, action and awareness kind of merge together. You kind of lose a sense of yourself. You're completely absorbed in the whatever it is that you're doing. You also feel like you have really good control over what's going on, whether it's a game or artwork or whatever it might be. All these different things happen, and this guy named Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, he actually built on Abraham Maslow's work. Whereas Abraham Maslow kind of focused on people who were, the top of their game, Mike Csikszentmihalyi, he focused on just normal people, everyday people. And he did a huge study. It's one of the biggest happiness studies that has ever been done. And he found that the people who are the happiest are the people who experience flow most often. And he interviewed people that were like shepherds, people who were dishwashers, cooks, artists, all sorts of people, huge range of people, and all of them experienced flow in the things that they did, and were able to talk about flow and teach Mike Csikszentmihalyi about how flow is triggered and what happens with flow. So one of the things that kind of led Mihai Csikszentmihalyi to this was he was in World War II. He was a young kid in World War II. He was about 7 or 8 years old, and he was actually captured by the Italian fascists in World War II, and he was put in a prison camp, and he was only 8 or 9 years old at this point. And one of the things that he talks about that helped him get through that whole experience was he played chess, and he found that when he played chess, everything else kind of disappeared, and he only was focusing on the chess game. And he found that it was a really good way for him to deal with this really horrible experience. And he also found that people around him, the adults around him, most of them didn't experience, they didn't play chess, they didn't do these kinds of things, and so they had a really, really difficult time dealing with the experience. And he kind of had a hunch as he grew older that chess, that experience of flow that he felt playing chess, is what helped him get through that experience. And years later, after he became a psychologist, he was fascinated with the work of artists. And he saw, when he observed artists like painting a painting, he saw that they were completely absorbed in the painting. They would ignore hunger, they would ignore exhaustion, they would just keep working and working on this painting. It was like everything else just kind of fell away, and the only thing that mattered to the artist was that painting. And then once they finished the painting, they were kind of done with it, and they weren't interested in it anymore. And he had a feeling that that experience was similar to what he was going through with the chess game, but he also knew that that was something that we really hadn't done a lot of work with, and really didn't understand what was going on, how to trigger that experience, and the benefits of that experience. And so that's kind of what led him to this work. So a lot of new people, new researchers have picked up on the work of Mike Csikszentmihalyi, and they've done some really important research on it. Actually, some of the most important research has come out of the DARPA agency, so it's the Defense Advanced Research Project, it's the military research department. And what they found is that people, they could actually induce flow in people with an electric kind of brain scan kind of thing, and they were able to induce flow in snipers. And they found that when snipers were in flow, they were able to accomplish the task twice as fast as when they weren't in flow. And they also, they started doing research on this, and they wondered what would happen if they took someone who was, never had shot a gun before and tried to teach them how to become a sniper, and, what happened if they did that with flow. So they would induce flow in these novice shooters, and they found that they were able to become experts in shooting 50% faster than people who weren't in flow. McKinsey Associates, they're a big research, like a business and management consulting firm, and they do a lot of research for companies. And they did a 10-year study, and they found that executives who were in flow reported being 5 times more productive. And this has been bared out in other research. But the idea here is that, when you're in flow, learning and performance, creativity, all these things are enhanced. There's been some more academic studies where they look at people in college, and they found that they actually are more internally motivated, so they're doing the work because they want to do the work, and they learn quicker and they learn better. And like I said earlier, when you're in flow, the people who are in flow the most often are the people who are report being the happiest. And this is important because happiness is one of the causes of success we found, and that's the study that I have down there by Lubermorsky, King, and Denier. When you're in, a positive state, that actually causes success. It's not the other way around, which we usually think that success leads to happiness, and that's actually not true. And that's another reason that Csikszentmihalyi did this research. He realized that Americans, physically, materially, they were much more successful than they have ever been in their history, but levels of happiness haven't really moved much. Only about 30% of people in America report being happy. Even though our material wealth has gone up, our happiness hasn't, and that's another thing that led him to do this research. Some of the most interesting research that they've done in sports, they've looked at athletes who were in the top 5% of whatever sport they were doing. So these are really elite athletes. And then they looked at the top 1%, so the best of the best in different sports. And what they found is the difference between the top 1% and the top 5% was that the top 1% could control their brains basically and enter flow pretty much on demand. And so that really kind of shows how much of an effect flow has on people's performance. And so let's see. So there are quite a few triggers to flow. There's actually 17 triggers to flow. There are psychological, social, environmental, and creative triggers to flow. There's a whole list. I won't go through all of them, but these are all different ways that people enter into flow. And one of the important things that they found is that there are actually 4 stages to flow. So the first stage of entering into flow is what they call struggle. So this is where we're feeling stress. So this is what I was talking about earlier about how we perceive stress. So actually, stress and struggle is an important step in the cycle of flow. So here we have the fight or flight response, and this is where we have adrenaline going through our body. We have cortisol, which is a stress hormone. All these things are going through our body, and it doesn't feel good. We don't like this state, and if we're not able to push through it and get to the next state, which is the release and relaxation state, then these are the people who end up getting sick because they're stuck in that fight or flight response. They're also in what's called beta brainwaves. So these are the brainwaves that are associated with normal waking consciousness. And when you have too much beta brainwaves, it's like you can't stop thinking. You have that kind of rushing thoughts, and you just can't really concentrate. And that's what happens when you're in the first state of flow. The second state, and what we're going to be talking about today, is release, and that's where you relax. This is called the relaxation response, which was discovered by a guy named Herbert Benson, and a lot of the work that we're talking about today actually comes from Herbert Benson. But what he found is that if you are able to push through the stress and get to a point where either through exhaustion or just because you know about it and you're able to control it, and you do some deep breathing exercises, let's say, you're able to relax. That increases the alpha brain waves, which is associated with relaxation. And that leads into the next step, which is actually flow. And that's where we have the high performance that we were talking about. Everything kind of melts away. We're only focused on what we're doing. And we have theta brain waves in this state. And this is where the theta brain waves are kind of like the subconscious. So this is where we have subconscious information. And the thing about subconscious thought is that it happens much quicker and easier than conscious thought. And that's one of the reasons why people report being kind of, in the flow, because things just kind of flow and happen naturally, and they don't really have to think about it consciously. They just kind of know what to do. And that's also related to those gamma spikes. And so gamma spikes are really high amplitude brain waves, and those are associated with, like, when you suddenly solve a puzzle or suddenly see a solution that you couldn't see before. That's a gamma spike, and that's also associated with the flow state. And then at the end is the recovery process, and that's where we kind of are able to, we're not in flow anymore. We've gone through that experience. It might be later that night, and a lot of times we experience this state while we're sleeping, and that's usually what the delta brainwaves are associated with, is when we're sleeping. And that's actually where a lot of learning and consolidation happens, is when we're sleeping. That's why sleeping is a really important thing. So these are the brainwaves. I just talked about them briefly, but there are 4 main beta brainwaves. And the combination of these brain waves kind of determine what your state of consciousness is at any moment. So let's go into beta brain waves. So like I said, this is like our normal waking consciousness. Beta brain waves aren't necessarily bad. That's like all of us right now probably have very high, relatively high beta brain waves because we're in a normal state of consciousness. But if you have too much, if you get really stressed out and your thoughts start racing and you have that fight or flight response, you can have too much beta brain waves, and that can lead to difficulties with focusing and other problems. So alpha brain waves, like I said, are associated with being in a daydream or being relaxed. It's kind of, you're not sleeping, but you're much more relaxed when you have alpha brain waves. The world kind of falls away. You might have vivid imagery. You might daydream or fantasize and have visualizations. Usually, the way that Anna Wise describes alpha brain waves is that they're the bridge between our conscious mind, our beta brain waves, and our subconscious mind, the theta brain waves. So it's not that alpha brain waves are super important by themselves. It's more that they're important as a link between the beta and the theta. And the theta brain waves are, the ones that are most associated with flow. That's our subconscious mind. It's that experience where we know something and it's on the tip of our tongue, but we can't quite get it. That's usually a sign that you have beta brain waves and some strong theta, but you don't have enough alpha to make the connection. And when you make that connection and you suddenly remember what's on the tip of your tongue, that's when you have the alpha brain waves that connect the theta to the beta. And like I said, this is experienced during peak experiences and daydreaming, dreaming in general. Delta brain waves are some of the deepest brain waves that we have, and this is typically associated with our unconscious mind. They're present during deep sleep and restorative sleep, and also when people are feeling empathy for other people, they usually have delta brain waves going on. So what Anna Wise talks about is how all 4 of those brain waves are important, and the studies that they've done and the research they've done in the flow show that it's not that one brainwave is more important than the other. They're all important, and it's just being able to get the right mix, the right combination of these brainwaves. And that's what we're going to hopefully learn about today. And I'll give you guys some tools that you can use to help develop those skills. So the awakened mind that Anna Wise talks about is really what flow is. That's the whole idea of flow. And what the top performers are able to do is to get into that state pretty much on demand. And so the good news is that there are some really simple skills and techniques that you can use and learn to help develop those skills and make sure that we have enough alpha brain waves and that we're able to get to that flow state easier. So this is just kind of some diagrams of the different brainwave patterns that we experience. So there's the beta brainwaves is the first one. Alpha there is in the middle. Theta, they're lower frequency. Delta is the lowest frequency. And that last little chart, that last little diagram, let's see. This diagram right here, that's the awakened mind. And that's where you have all four brain waves. You have the beta, the alpha, the theta, and the delta. So here's the beta, here's the alpha waves, here's the theta, and the delta. And so the alpha is acting as a bridge between our conscious mind and our subconscious and unconscious minds. And so the idea is when we're able to get into that state, that's when we're our most creative, that's when we're able to perform the best. And it's also a really good way for our physical bodies. There's all sorts of positive neurochemicals and hormones that are released when we're able to achieve the state and get into the flow state. So one of the interesting things that Anna Wise talks about is that, you know, brain waves kind of take the mystique out of meditation. So it used to be that we didn't understand the meditative mind. We didn't understand what was going on. And a lot of people think sometimes that meditation has to do with religion. And what Anna Wise and the research that she and Max Cage did is showed that it's not about, you know, a spirit. It's not necessarily about a spiritual reality. It's more about how our brains are functioning. And so they kind of took the mystique out of meditation, which I think is good because we're able to see that, you know, whether you're a priest or a monk, you know, or just a regular person in prayer or sitting quietly, all those brain states depend on your brain waves, and they're related. And so here we have, we can see a Catholic priest in prayer, which is similar but not the same as a Zen monk. And you can see the Zen monk is totally in the alpha, theta, and delta, whereas the priest has much more beta, so much more thinking going on than the Zen monk does. But a Zen master down here at the bottom, the Zen master, you know, has a little bit of beta, a little bit of alpha, theta, and a little bit of delta. So that's someone who's been, you know, studying meditation for years and years and years. One of the great things that Anna Wise found is that there are kind of shortcuts to get to that state. And one of them is if you just simply relax your tongue and your jaw. And just by doing that, that gets you a state that is very similar to the Zen master. And that's without years of meditation. That's just a very simple thing you can do. And by doing that, you have a very similar frame of mind and brain functioning to someone who is an experienced meditator. So that's actually one of the 1-minute meditations we're going to do in a little while. We talked about that. So these are just some of the different patterns that Anna Wise has found. Splayed beta, this is where you are kind of in a panic state and you can't really focus and think too clearly. This is when we might have a final or a test or a paper due and we're kind of freaking out. That's what splayed beta is. We have too much beta. We don't have any alpha or theta or delta, and we're just kind of freaking out. So this is this over here, the alpha blocking. This is where we have, that's the tip of the tongue experience. So we have some, you know, subconscious material down here, but we can't get to it because we don't have the alpha as a bridge. When we make the connection, that's down here. That's where we have the alpha, and we're able to get to that subconscious or unconscious information. That's that kind of, you know, like, oh, I remember it now. I remember what I was trying to say. That's what's going on in our brain. And this here, the aha moment, this is actually when we are able to kind of creatively problem solve things that we didn't necessarily predict. We were able to figure something out that wasn't very obvious, like you're solving a really difficult puzzle or a brain teaser, and you suddenly see the solution. This is what's going on when that happens. The awakened mind, we talked about that already. That's where you're kind of have all four brain waves in the right proportion, and you're able to be in that flow state, and you're performing at a really, really peak level. This is repressed content, this next one, and this is where we have a lot of, it's kind of similar to this one up here. We have a lot of beta, we have no alpha, and a little bit of theta and delta. So it's we're trying to kind of maybe push an unpleasant memory away. That's what's going on at that point. All right, so any questions about any of the things that I talked about so far? About flow or brain waves or any of the research I talked about? You can talk into the mic if you want, or type. Either way is fine. Okay. Okay. So is everyone with me? This is going to be kind of the interactive part of the workshop. So, okay. Okay, thanks. So just hoping that everyone's with me. Grace, are you there? Can you hear me? I'm not sure if Grace can hear me. Hopefully Grace can hear us. All right, so what we're going to do now, there are some 1-minute meditations that Anna Wise found that really kind of help us kind of take control of our mind and our brain states and use them in ways that help us get into that flow state that we were talking about. So the first step that we're going to do is we're just going to sit for 1 minute, and you're not going to do, don't try to relax, don't try to do anything, just kind of sit there for 1 minute. I'm going to time it, and we're just going to kind of pay attention to what goes on. So don't try to change anything, don't try to relax or focus on your breathing, just kind of sit there for 1 minute. And the other thing I want you to do while you're sitting there is count the number of times you breathe. While you're, kind of paying attention to what's going on, just count the number of times that you breathe during this 1 minute. Okay, does everyone got that? I hope. Okay, so we're going to get started starting now. Okay, so I had 23 breaths in that 1 minute. What did you guys get? 26. Okay, 32. All right. 24. Excellent. Okay, no, that's okay. So what I want you to do now, this is our first 1 minute meditation, and so all we're going to do, this is really simple. We're just going to sit for 1 minute. This is best done with your eyes closed. And incidentally, when you close your eyes, that actually instantly ramps up the alpha brainwaves just by closing your eyes. So that's an important thing to know. So if you close your eyes and you just kind of focus on relaxing your tongue. So you're going to kind of feel your tongue. It's almost going to feel like it widens a little bit in your mouth, and you want to kind of imagine it floating in the cavity of your mouth. You want to exaggerate the relaxation of your tongue, kind of allow your chin to drop and loosen your jaw so that your mouth is kind of relaxed. You're going to exhale kind of normally, but just focus on relaxing your tongue. And we're going to do this for 1 minute. And we're going to start right now, and we're going to count our breaths as we do this as well. So ready, set, go. So just remember, you want to focus on relaxing your tongue and let your jaw just relax. Okay, so at that time I had 16. What about you guys? 19. Okay, 16, good. So Sarah, you went down 5. Okay, Mara, you went down quite a bit. Okay, good. So that's good. So that's a really simple meditation. It only takes 1 minute. No one has to know you're doing it, so you can do it pretty much any time. You don't have to close your eyes to do it either. But it's one of the most effective and powerful meditations that Anna Weiss found to help us get to that awakened high-performance mind state. So when you're in those states where you're feeling a lot of stress and you're kind of struggling with something, whether it's maybe a paper, or a homework assignment, or maybe something unrelated to school, and you're feeling your body kind of get ramped up, and you have the racing thoughts, and maybe your heart's going faster and you're breathing faster. That's a really good tool that you can use just by relaxing your tongue and kind of relaxing your jaw and your mouth. It really helps us get into that more relaxed and high performance state. So that's a really good one. And the reason I love these is that you can use them anywhere. No one even knows that no one has to know that you're doing it, and you can do it at any time. And the more you practice that, the better you're able to take control of your brain states, and get into that flow state that we're talking about much easier than if we don't use these techniques. So the next technique we're going to do is, it's another one you can kind of do it at the same time that you're doing the relaxing your tongue, or you can do it separately. You don't have to do them at the same time. So what you're going to do is you're going to pretend that your hand is a lever, and put your hand either on your leg or on the desk in front of you, and each time that you breathe in, you're going to raise your hand, and each time that you breathe out, you're going to lower your hand. So your hand is basically a lever that's directly connected to your breathing. And what you want to do as you're breathing, as you're you moving your hand and trying to kind of control your breathing, you're going to just slightly slow down how fast you raise and lower your hand. So you're going to kind of take a little pause at each beginning and each end of the breath. So as you breathe out, take a short pause, and then raise your hand slowly and breathe in, and then take a short pause, and then continue to do that. And we're just going to do that for 1 minute and see how many breaths that we have this time. So you're going to count your breathing again, and we're going to do that starting now. Okay, so I had 7 that time. What about you guys? 10. Okay, good. That's excellent. So we've basically cut our breathing in half from when we started. So we were up in the 20s, and now we're down to 9, 10, 7, 8. So that's a really powerful technique as well. And this is actually the technique that DARPA used when they were training their snipers and the trying to train expert snipers and also brand new snipers. This is the technique that they taught them that enabled them to get into the flow state, was focusing on the breath and trying to slow the breathing down. And by doing that, they were able to get into that flow state and able to perform so much better than people who weren't in the flow state. So that's a really powerful technique. Okay, so the next one is concentration. And so what we're going to do, we're going to sit again for 1 minute, and you're going to just kind of keep your awareness on it. Pick a spot in front of you, either on the wall or on the floor, maybe on the ceiling. Pick a spot in front of you and just focus your attention on that one spot that you've chosen. Become aware of the spot. Let your awareness move outward in a straight line from you to the spot. Let your eyes relax and unfocus your vision. The spot might become hazy or clouded, and that's okay. That's kind of what you want to expect. And just allow your mind to kind of clear itself of all its thought and just focus on that thought, on that spot. And we're going to do that for 1 minute and see what it feels like. You don't have to count your breaths at this point. So just let's do this for 1 minute, starting now. Okay. So what did people experience during that 1 minute? What was that like for you? Or any of the other ones as well? What kind of, how did you feel in your body? How did you feel in your mind? What was going on? You started getting sleepy? Yep. Okay. That's good. That's the alpha brain waves, basically. Any other experiences? Did anyone notice their hands getting warmer or feet getting warmer? Okay, your mind started drifting. Yep, that's kind of normal. That's okay. So that's actually so that's an important point, because what happens when we meditate, any kind of meditation, is that we start off focusing on one thing. And it can be our breathing, it can be a phrase or a word, or it could be a spot in front of us. And then our concentration kind of wanders, and we think that we're meditating wrong. And actually, there's no wrong way to meditate. So that the process of meditation is actually focusing on something, and then our mind wanders, and we notice that our mind wanders, and we bring it back to the concentration object, whatever it might be. So that's the process of meditation. It's being non-judgmental about how our mind functions. It's just kind of paying attention to how our mind, what our mind is concentrating on and where we're focusing. And so it's normal and expected that your mind is going to wander, and the process is to bring it back to our concentration. That's actually what we're going to talk about in a few minutes. That's the process pretty much all meditation, but that's specifically associated with what we just did, and also with something called Benson's relaxation response, or concentration meditation. But it's pretty similar with all types of meditation. They're all about being mindful, being aware of how our mind is functioning, not judging either what's going on in our mind, and also not judging what's going on around us, but just kind of being mindful of where we're concentrating and trying to keep our focus on whatever it is that we're meditating on. Another neat trick that Anna Wise found that helps kickstart our alpha brain waves, which can help relax us when we need to be relaxed, is by closing your eyes. That alone increases the amount of alpha brain waves. So even if you just took like a 5, 10, 30-second break with your eyes closed, that will increase your alpha brain waves, and you don't have to do anything else but close your eyes. Another thing that you can do when you have your eyes closed is look down at your feet on the floor with your eyes closed. So you move your eyes down, and then just kind of draw a line from your eyes along the floor, and then to the wall, up the wall, and then look at the ceiling. This whole time you're doing it, you have your eyes closed, so you're kind of looking with your eyes closed, and you just start down at the bottom, and you go all the way up. And it's kind of hard the first few times you do it. It kind of feels funny, but by doing that, you kickstart your alpha brain waves, and it's kind of similar to that whole relaxing the tongue exercise. It helps you get into that relaxed state really quickly. It can help you function at a higher level. So any other questions about the stuff that we talked about, or any of the experiences that we had while we were meditating? Any questions come up? Excuse me. Okay, good. I'm glad you like it. No, yeah, so that's an important point. So you can't meditate wrong. There's literally no way to meditate wrong. That's something that we in the West, kind of America, Europe, we're always kind of focused on doing things in the right way and the wrong way. Meditation, you really can't get it wrong. And if you think you're getting it wrong, that's what's getting in the way of your meditation. So it's being able to be non-judgmental, not judging yourself, not judging your mind, and just kind of being aware of what you're doing, and then just gently bringing your concentration back to whatever it is you're concentrating on. So yeah, that's an important point. I'm glad you brought that up. So kind of related to all the benefits of flow that we talked about, there are lots of benefits to meditation. So in addition to helping you get into the flow state, it helps us decrease our anxiety. People who meditate, even for short periods of time, 10 minutes a day for 4 to 8 weeks, report better. They're in better moods. They report more happiness. They report less sadness. It activates the prefrontal cortex when you meditate. So that's the part of your brain that has to do with higher level thinking. It actually helps your body respond to any type of outside pathogen. It helps it respond to that in a much more robust way. So you can fight off the flu, you can fight off the cold, you can fight off all sorts of stress-related physical disorders much better if you're able to meditate. And so Herbert Benson, he's the guy who discovered Benson's relaxation response. He just did a study not long ago. He actually wrote a book about it, and I included it in the reference page. It's called The Relaxation Revolution. And what he did was he took people who had never meditated before, taught them how to meditate. They did 10 minutes of meditation once a day for 8 weeks. And before they started meditating, he took DNA samples of each person. And then he taught them to meditate. They meditated for 8 weeks, and then he took DNA samples from them after they had done the meditation. From that 1 8-week practice of meditating once a day for 10 minutes a day, they actually changed a whole bunch of DNA markers that had to do with stress disorders. So there were some genes that had to do with, like, let's say, heart disease. And before they started the meditation, those genes were switched on. So that meant that they were at a higher risk for a heart attack. After the meditation, after the 8 weeks of meditation, he found that that same person with the heart disease gene that had been switched on was now switched off. So people actually changed their DNA profile, actually changed their genes from being able to generate that relaxation response just for 10 minutes a day and only for 8 weeks. So that's, you know, a really powerful effect, and that's you know, how powerful meditation can be, not just mentally, you know, and psychologically, but also just physically for us. So that was a really important finding. And he's done actually several studies on that, and they've replicated that study a couple different times. And it's really some of the most you know, concrete evidence that we have for the benefits of learning how to generate the relaxation response. So it also helps with our creativity. When we're able to meditate and relax, we're able to get into that flow state much more easily. We're more creative. We're more cognitively flexible, so we're able to problem solve better and see different perspectives and maybe see things that other people don't notice. That's called lateral thinking, so we're able to do that much better when we meditate. And also we're able to do that much better when we get into that flow state that we talked about. The military has also done a lot of work on memory, and they found that our working memory, which is the part of our memory, it's our kind of like our short-term memory, like when we're trying to remember a telephone number, that's our working memory. And it's very hard to increase our working memory. It's a very difficult thing. It's almost like hardwired into us. But the military has found that soldiers that meditate are able to actually increase their working memory. And you know, that's one of the only things that we know of that can actually improve that. It also helps with long-term memory. People who meditate, they've shown that people's hippocampus, the part of our brain that has to do with long-term memory, it actually grows with people who meditate. So it helps our short-term memory, it helps our long-term memory. They found that with fighter pilots, they have much faster reaction times if they've meditated than with pilots who don't meditate, and it also increases people's IQ. So there's a bunch of you know, cognitive benefits as well as physical benefits. So this is probably no surprise to anybody out there, but so 94% of college students feel overwhelmed. And so just by doing some of the simple techniques that we learned today, you know, relaxing our tongue, paying attention to our breathing, trying to slow our breathing down, concentrating on something, whether it's a spot in front of us or maybe a phrase or a word, doing all those things helps us control that feeling of being overwhelmed, helps generate all the benefits that we just talked about, and also helps us get into that flow state much more easily and pretty much on demand. That's the way that people switch flow on, is by generating that relaxation response. So those are all reasons why you know, this is important stuff. This is something that can help you perform at a higher level and also be much healthier and deal with things, stressful things, in a much more healthy way. Let's see. So there's also, you know, in addition to meditation, there's also yoga, which kind of combines meditation with physical activity, and there's lots of benefits to that. So that's another technique. You know, a lot of times there are yoga studios and gyms around that offer yoga classes. Those are really good ways to kind of get into meditation and relaxation, and it's also really good for our bodies to do these things. They found that people who meditate or do yoga are able to concentrate better. They have less ADHD. It's able to help people with asthma. They have less asthma attacks when they practice yoga. So there's lots of, you know, benefits to these things. So the thing I'm going to leave us with today, and we're not going to do this today, but this is something I would encourage you to do on your own. This is called Benson's relaxation response, and it's a very simple meditation technique. It's a type of concentration meditation, and the way that Benson recommends it is that you practice this for 10 minutes a day, You know, try to make it a practice so you do this each day, and it helps us. We get all those benefits that we talked about, you know, the physical, the psychological benefits. It also is a skill that we can use to get into that flow state. So when things are kind of stressful and we're struggling, we can use this to help kind of jumpstart our high performance mind and get into that flow state. So what you're going to do is you're going to sit quietly in a comfortable position. You're going to close your eyes, and you want to do this, you know, preferably in a quiet place. It doesn't have to be quiet, but it works better if it's in a quiet place. You're going to kind of do a body scan. So you're going to start from, you can start either from the top of your head or from the tips of your toes, and just kind of go scan your body and try to kind of focus on each major muscle group and focus on relaxing each major muscle group. And you're going to go through that from the top of your head down to the bottom of your feet or vice versa, either way, and you're going to try and relax each one. You're going to breathe through your nose, become aware of your breathing, focus in on your breathing, and you're going to pick a word. And so some people like to use the word one, some people like to use the word God or peace. Some people, like a traditional kind of Eastern meditation, is to focus on the word Om, which is like a mantra that is pretty popular. Doesn't matter what word you choose, just try to choose a word that means something to you. You're going to, each time that you breathe out, you're going to focus on that word. You're going to repeat that word mentally. Some people like to say it out loud. Some people like to say it mentally. It's kind of personal preference, whichever you prefer. You're going to say that word to yourself as you breathe out. And you're going to do that for 10 to 20 minutes. You can open your eyes and check your watch, but try not to use an alarm like on your watch or computer or an alarm clock or anything like that, because if you use an alarm, it kind of shuts down that whole relaxation response, so you don't want to do that. The key point here is to not worry that you're doing it correctly. And we talked a little bit about this earlier, but you literally cannot do this wrong. So just say that focus word. You'll find that your mind wanders, and that's okay. Just notice that your mind wandered and bring it back to that focus word. So you're going to kind of continue that, and you'll find that the more often you do this, the less often your mind will wander. So, you know, it might take 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks before you notice a difference, and that's okay. It doesn't matter how long it takes, but eventually you'll get to the point where your mind wanders less and less. And so, you know, but if it doesn't, that's okay. Just notice it and bring your concentration back to the mantra. And there are literally hundreds and hundreds of articles that are coming out all the time. There are lots of new articles, research journals that are publishing stuff on the benefits of meditation and the benefits of flow. It's an exciting kind of research area. There's tons of stuff out there. I only just picked out the ones that I thought were most important, but there are a lot more. This is just literally the tip of the iceberg. There's some great videos out there. There's a great Google talk by Stephen Kotler, who's the guy that did a lot of work with adventure athletes and flow. It's a really good talk. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi's got a couple of great speeches on TED, and you can hear about flow. There's also some really great TED talks on meditation. There's something called loving kindness meditation. We didn't really touch on that much, but there's been some exciting research into that, and there's some really good videos on that as well. So there's lots of material out there. The important thing is to use those 1-minute meditations. Try and use them, on a consistent basis so that you can get more and more skilled at kind of taking control of your mind and your brain, and hopefully getting into that state where you can perform better and just be healthy and happy. That's the whole idea here. So any questions? Okay, great. Yes. And I also included a Word document that has been the instructions for Benson's relaxation response and the PDF of today's presentation. Yep, that's important, Moira. It's just you have to do it. It doesn't help you if you don't do it. So try to remember. That's the great thing about the 1-minute meditations is you don't really have to commit to a long-term thing. It's just a 1-minute exercise, 1-minute skill that you can use, and it has some very powerful effects that can help you out. So, all right, thanks for listening, everybody, and hope to see you soon. You're welcome. Thank you, guys.